hygiene.
Okay, so all three are in.
Okay, so we're going to open the Thursday, August 20th meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health. It's approximately 6:10. Let's see. Let's start with item number 1, COVID update with Health Nurse Deb Murphy and Health Officer John Coolin. It's all yours.
Deb is muted.
There it is.
There we go.
Do not unmute yourself. Never said that before. So the update is good. We haven't had a case in Nahat since July 27th. So that's 24 days. If you follow the weekly data that's published by CDC, it actually says we've had one case in the last 14 days, which we haven't, as far as I know. The only thing I can think of is maybe, I know the testing now is, they're telling people at Lynn Community Health and the AFC Urgent Care in Swampscott that the wait now for your test results can be up to 7 days. So maybe, but still, you know, but anyway, as far as I'm concerned with my DPH reporting, we haven't had any new cases of residents in Nahat. And we're still listed, you know, how they've done the red, green, and yellow. We're still in the white. So we are very, very low, and our positivity rate is listed as 0.56%. That's actually reflective of the one case that they said that we have, that I don't have knowledge of.
That's good news. Thanks, Deb. John?
I think it's very encouraging to note that the state positive rate is down to 1.4 again. And while this bodes well for all of us, here we are we're getting to late August, where people are looking to get back to work and especially back to school. So it's going to be a challenging month next month, but we will continue doing what we do, and folks in town are well reminded to continue doing what folks have been doing, and remember that the challenges are in front of us. That's all I have for now.
Right.
I want to add one thing just about the COVID, and that's just to remind people that the flu clinic this year is going to be outside to discourage any gatherings of large groups inside the town hall. And we have worked with Yasmin at the Nahat Country Club, so we're going to have a drive-through there. Looks like the perfect place. So I'm just working on the logistics now with the team to help make this go smoothly, and we'll be posting more information soon.
That's great. Good news. Any update on the West Nile virus update?
No, nothing has changed for Nahat since I reported at the last meeting. We, as a state, we have heightened awareness of Triple E, having acquired our third human case. I can say that the Northeast Mass Mosquito Control Commission staff has been to town, and they have surveyed, as they are doing in all of the communities in Northeastern Mass. I think their number is up to 36 communities, and we will maintain our communication with them. And if I get any communications from DPH or Northeast Mass Mosquito Control, I'll be forwarding it to not only Tony, the town administrator, but also folks who have groups working outdoors, including the DPW superintendent and a couple of groups in town. Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Nick.
Hey, can I have a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Just, is there any particular protocol for testing in town?
No. As far as, do we offer testing, do you mean, or when the test is
Yeah.
required?
Do we offer?
No, we don't. We don't have any testing capabilities here in town.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I have the town clerk on, as well as the superintendent, Tony Parentozzi, on the call,
Okay.
and ask them to join us to quickly talk about how COVID is impacting the election, and then maybe a quick update on reopening school.
Sounds good.
Diane, do you want to go first?
Sure. So as many of you know, due to COVID-19, everybody in the state received a absentee ballot card. If you did not receive one, it was because you had already filed for an absentee ballot in a previous election. So all of those have been sent out. Most of them have been returned. I have over 800 of them returned. 720 of them ballots have been sent out in the last 5 or 6 days. So most of you should be getting them. The last day to request an absentee ballot would be next Wednesday, the 26th. So if you want an absentee ballot, you need to request it. You can get the form either by going to the Secretary of State website or the Town on the Hot website and go to the voting information. You can download an absentee ballot there, or form, not a ballot. The form comes in and then we send the ballot out. There are, the states made it, because due to COVID-19, made it very easy to vote this year. You can either just mail the ballot back into us. You can drop it off at the lockbox out in front of the town hall, or you can bring it into the town hall starting on actually tomorrow, Friday, 8 to 12, and then all of next week. The last day for voter registration, if you haven't registered yet, is this Saturday. The town hall will be open. Well, the clerk's office will be open, which is the entrance by the handicap ramp. We will be open from 2 to 4 and 7 to 8 on Saturday to accept either early voting, you can come in and vote right then, or to accept voter registration. It will also be open on Sunday from 12 to 2 for early voting. And then the following week, every day, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4, Friday, 8 to 12. You can walk in. The ballot boxes are set up. We're doing social distancing. You can vote there. If you, once you have voted, you can track whether your ballot has been accepted back. I know there's a big concern with the United States Postal Service. There's a website. You can either go to Secretary of State, and then there's a icon that says voting information, and then you go to trackmyballot.com. So anybody can go in if you're nervous about whether we have received the ballot that you've either put in the mail or dropped in the drop box. You can go to the Secretary of State or go to www.trackmyballot.com. That's www.trackmyballot.com. And you would be able to see. Now, if you've dropped it in the lockbox, give me a day or two. I'm getting I will be getting eventually 800 of them back in. I try to get all of them scanned back into the system the same day. If not, it would be the following day. So if you drop it off and you go that night and check on it and it's not in, please give me an extra day to get that scanned into the system. I think that's about it. All of this information is on the Town on a Hot website. The dates and times for voting, early voting, again, is Saturday 2 to 4, Sunday 12 to 2, and all next week during normal business hours. Even though the town hall is closed on Tuesday and Thursday, the town clerk's door will be open those days for early voting.
And I'll just, throw in there too that on election day, September 1st, Tuesday, September 1st, we'll have the town hall set up similar to how we had it set up for the town elections earlier this year. And we'll have, it's a Tuesday instead of a Saturday. So, everyone will be working from home that day. So only the people coming in to vote and the people working the polls will be in the building that day to ensure that we're staying under the max capacity number and, keeping the place clean and safe for everyone to come and vote. For anybody, concerned about that, we'll have it set up properly according to the guidance provided by the state.
Yeah, I believe that number is 25 people. We will have between myself and Carol and the poll workers, there will be 5 or maybe 6 of us, and then the police officer, 7. So we will have enough voting for 8 people at a time. So that doesn't leave us a lot of people to stand in line. I know at the town elections, everybody came at 7:30. It is a Tuesday. We will have to have you wait outside if there's more than 15 people there to vote at a time. So just be prepared for that. It moves pretty quickly, hopefully, and we will be regulating the social distancing. Everyone will get their own pen, and we will be cleaning up and have wipes for everyone that votes.
Thank you, Diane. Good
You're
job.
welcome.
I know it's a lot to get together, but it sounds like you're under control pretty well. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring the Board of Selectmen and the community up to date on the various things that we have done in order to begin school this year. I guess I'm going to start with the overall guidelines from the Commissioner Governor. The Commissioner negotiated with the 3 largest educational unions in the state. The typical school year had a mandatory 180 days of education for the students. That number was dropped this year to 170 days with 10 days of training so that the educational staff would know how to deal with the variety of protocols and also the variety of new educational processes required by remote learning. In the spring, we did it on an emergency basis, and this year we will do it on much more of a planned basis. So there needs to be 170 days of school, and for an elementary school like we have, there has to be 850 hours in the year of educational activities. So the first thing we did is we did a feasibility study. Our feasibility study turned out very different than a lot of school districts. We determined that with 6 feet physical distance between all of our adults in the classroom and the students with one another, and that's seat to seat, we could in fact accommodate 100% of our students back in school. That's a rare commodity in the Commonwealth. We meet all of the guidelines of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So with that as a basis, the next thing we did is we had a planning committee to develop one of the two plans that we were required to develop. The first one was a preliminary plan. So we had a team of 2 school committee members, parent and guardian, 3 administrators, teachers representing the Nahant Teachers Association, our wonderful Board of Health nurse, Deb Murphy, and our school nurse. And we developed a preliminary plan. We met on July 21st, 23rd, 28th, and again on August 4th. That preliminary plan was turned over to the school committee, who had the authority and the responsibility of developing the final plan. The school committee met on August 4th, on August 6th, and August 11th. At all 3 of those meetings, there was public comment taken, and the school committee communicated individually their perception of what the plan should be. On the 11th of August, they took a vote. The vote was 5-0. And the plan is as follows. From on August 31st to September 15th, our staff will be in training sessions, both in the building, in person, and in the building electronically, remote, if the groups get over 15. On September 16th, 17th, and 18th, all of our elementary students will have 3 days of remote learning. That's to do a variety of things. Number one, it's to make sure our teachers are very good at remote learning, if in case we have to go back to it because of the COVID-19 cases that are in the community. The second thing is that will give them a chance to meet with students and parents, either electronically, which is going to be the predominant way, or in a rare case, in person. We have had no transition time as we do typically. So when a student typically moves from 3rd grade to 4th grade, there's a transition that takes place. So the students know their new teacher, the parents get to know their new teacher. So we haven't, of course, had that because the building was locked down. So that will take place on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. On September 21st, we will go to in-person learning and remote learning for the students whose parents choose remote learning. We have done 3 surveys, and the math looks like this. About 80% of our parents have chosen in-person learning. Approximately 20% have chosen remote learning. So our teachers will be teaching in their classrooms to about 80% of the students. The numbers are much lower than in all the other districts. And we have the space that when we have a large class of over 15 or so, we have the ability to have a larger classroom space so that we maintain that physical separation. On September 21st, we will also begin our preschool program. We have 2 preschool rooms, and we will have a 1-to-10 ratio, adult to students. And the plan calls for no sooner than October 5th, we would begin our after-school and our before-school supervision programs. Of course, in the middle of all this, on the 13th of August, the state came out with its color code. Interestingly enough, the school committee made its decision prior to the color code coming out, but it was perfect. The school committee's plan is exactly what the commissioner and governor's color code stated. And as, of course, Ms. Murphy gave you the data, we have not had a new case since the 27th of July. So the expectation of the commissioner is that we will have in-person learning. So serendipitous, but it blended perfectly with the plan. The plan has lots of details, which I will not bore you with. I have forwarded to the town administrator both our plan and the Swampscott plan, because of course our 7th through 12th graders go to school in Swampscott. The principal, Kevin Andrews, and I participated in the development of the Swampscott plan. It's different. Our 7th through 12th graders will go remote until October 23rd in Swampscott. But English language learners, special education students, and students identified as high needs students will be offered in-person learning starting at the end of their training period on September 16th. On October 26th, the Swampscott School District will go into a hybrid model. There will be 2 groups of students attending school each day. One group will go from 8 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. Another group will go from 11:45 to 2:15 p.m. Obviously, there are lots of details, and those details are still to be laid out, but it's a different plan for the 7th to 12th graders than it is for the Johnson Elementary School students, and that's really based on the feasibility study. We have the space and we have the ability to do what many school districts, including Swampscott, cannot do. The in-person learning is not a typical, as in the past day. We have many protocols in place, including sanitizing and cleaning the facilities. Masks will be in place by all people. Visitors will not be allowed in our school for any reason. Parents need to drop off their students outside the building. We will have functional protocols like how students enter the building. They will be entering the building in physically distanced small groups. Classes will look different. We will have separate plastic separators when necessary. Travel in the building will look very different. Lunch will look very different. And of course, dismissal will look very different. The key that we know we have a responsibility to do is to continue communicating with parents, guardians, and all of the community members. All of the information I have just said is on our website, and I sent it to the Town of Nahant webmaster, and it's on the town website too. The one thing that's brand new that I think is interesting that I want to make sure everyone is aware of is the governor that just announced that if a cluster develops anywhere in the state, he will be responsible, or the Department of Public Health will be responsible for a quick turnaround testing. And I don't know what quick turnaround means. My guess is it's 2 to 3 days. Perhaps Deb knows more information. But that just came out today. So I know there was a question about what we're doing testing-wise. So if a small cluster does develop, the state is committed to making sure that there is a methodology to get quick COVID-19 testing. And without going into enormous detail, that's the skeleton of our plan and the Swampscott plan. And I would be pleased to answer any questions if I could.
Yeah. Well, first, Tony, let me say how lucky we are to have you doing the job that you've been doing under your leadership. I think that you sound like you've been working hard all summer. Your staff, the school committee, you seem to have your grips around this pretty well. I particularly like your ability to communicate with the community, doing the surveys and reaching out. You've done a terrific job, and we're lucky to have you in the position you're in. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Josh, Gene?
I just say ditto, and also, thanks to the parents for their contribution, and especially the school committee. I know it's the logistics are really tough and difficult choices. But thank you for the presentation, and thanks to all who participated in preparing those complicated plans.
Thank you.
Tony, I'd parrot what both Josh and Mark said, and that really was a fantastic job. I started to go through it, and it was so all-encompassing, and I still have time to go through it, and I'm sure I'll finish it at some point. But that's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a team effort. The parents had been fabulous, and of course, there's a lot of stress, as we all know. There's a lot of worry. I can assure you that the administration, the school committee, and our staff will do everything possible and everything our health experts tell us to do. We're educators. We're not experts in health. Our school committee is blessed because we do have medical experts on our school committee, and they are able to really help us out. But Deb and John have been just wonderful in communicating with us and giving us up-to-date details as necessary while maintaining the confidentiality of everyone. So it's really been a challenge. I love this word. We need to remain nimble because, just like today we found out, something major. It's like every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, something new comes down the road, and we have to be ready to adjust to it. I also want to thank Tony for his support. He came electronically to the August 11th meeting and put his support behind the school committee and the decisions that they were making, and that meant a lot to them.
Great.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Tony. Thank you for everything. There's a question in the chat. I don't know if you want to answer questions here, if you want to save it for a school committee meeting. It's up to the chairman.
Yeah. I mean, if it's up to the chair, and also some people might have some questions about election if Diane's still on. And if Diane or Tony can't stay for the entire meeting, perhaps if they are willing to take questions, we could accept them.
Certainly.
The question in the chat, Tony, is what is the plan for busing?
Thank you for that question. I have been in contact with both NRT, which is the company that buses a minor number of our students, and the Healy Bus Company. I have been in touch with both Paul and Mark. Mark Healy is the owner of the company. Both bus companies have protocols for safety, which follow the public health guidelines. They both have sanitizing protocols, and the plan is that we had 2 rounds of busing in the morning that went to Swampscott Middle School and High School. What we will do is, since there's 2 groups of kids, one early and one late, we will simply have 1 bus for the first group and 1 bus for the second group. The numbers of students being transported is the same, and that enables us not to expend any more of our precious resources on more busing. The NRT bus company, their busing is specialized to individual students and that will be worked out with the parents and guardians and the special education provider. So we do have a plan.
And Tony, when's the next committee meeting? And is that on Zoom just like this one, or how can people follow along?
Yes, the next school committee meeting is Tuesday at 7 p.m. And if you go to the Johnson Elementary School website, right on the opening page, it says school committee meeting. If you click on it, there's the Zoom. All you got to do is go that evening, double click, and you're right in. Or if you contact our office, obviously we will send that out to you. It's also on the agenda that the clerk posts. We have found that by putting the Zoom ID and password right on the agenda, it saves people hunting.
Okay, anything else? Okay, again, thank you, both Diane and Tony for your great work. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, other opening comments. I want to mention that the Nahat Fire Department is still seeking applicants for the position of call firefighters. Anyone interested can contact Chief Dean Palumbo or Town Hall, and they'll get you the details. So I encourage anybody who's interested in participating to get some more information and sign up. Josh, Gene, you have any opening comments?
I have a couple of quick ones. First one is not something I wish to have to bring up, but I've been made aware that there's a rumor circulating around town that I'm moving out of town. It's 100% false. I hope people stop circulating that rumor. The second thing, the last couple meetings we've had, we've talked about boats and boat rafting, but the governor's latest guidelines prohibit any boat raft up. So I don't know if Rob Tibble's on the phone, but I believe he has posted a notice of that at the town wharf. Those are the only two updates I have.
Thanks, Josh. Gene?
Yeah, I'm still totally impressed with the plan that Tony put together for the schools. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, and I went through, I think it's about 20, 25 pages of everything you can imagine getting done and getting done right. Full coverage. It's really worth going through.
Excellent job. Okay, new business. We've got some meeting minutes to approve for March 5th, April 1st, May 7th, June 10th, June 17th, June 23rd, and executive session meeting minutes from January 23rd and March 12th. And I know, Gene, you will probably abstain because I don't think you were a member of the board at the time, but we could go through them, Josh?
Yep. Board of Selectmen vote to approve the March 5th, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty abstain.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the April 1st, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty abstain.
Sorry. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the May 7th, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty abstain.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the June 10th, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty abstain.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the June 17th, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty abstain.
Are those all the Are those all the ones that Gene is abstaining from?
Yeah, I think the 23rd was your first meeting, June, right? Gene.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gene, you can vote on that one, right?
Okay.
So I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the June 23rd, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second, Gene, you want to second that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the executive session January 23rd, 2020 of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye.
Oh, you abstaining
You're
on that?
abstaining on that one, Gene.
Abstain on that?
That's 23rd.
Abstain, okay.
Yeah, I stumbled on my words there. It's January 23rd. So the next one is also prior to your election. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the executive session March 5th, 2020 of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, abstain.
Okay, the next vote is to approve the 2020 state primary election warrant. This is under 3B.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve and sign the 2020 state primary election warrant.
Seconded.
Been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
I don't know if, Diane, do you want to explain anything about the upcoming primary? Diane Dunphy? Any
I think
comments?
she pretty much covered that, didn't she?
I think
Yeah,
she did.
she might be off now.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
If you need me.
Just didn't know if there was anything further you wanted to explain. I know you went through a lot of it before.
I think it's all, I've said everything that needed to be said. The only thing I would say that any of the voting has to come through the handicap ramp entrance to the building. And you must, of course, wear a mask to come in and vote and stay within the social distancing of 6 feet. If anyone has any questions, they can email me at ddunphy@nahant.org about the elections.
Great, thank you, Diane. Any other
Well-
discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Under 3C, a vote to approve deficit spending budget for the month of September FY21.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the deficit spending budget for the month of September FY21.
I'll second that.
Well, it's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I can explain. Again, this is our third month of deficit spending approvals due to us not having town meeting yet and approving an annual budget. This September deficit spending plan is an increase from August, mostly because of town meeting coming up, plus the elections and school coming back on board. So the details are in your packet there. I don't think I need to go much further than that. Unless you have any questions.
I think I'm all set.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye.
Okay. Under 3D, the annual
I
town meeting.
move,
Go ahead, Gene.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to open the September 26, 2020 annual town meeting warrant for submission of articles.
Seconded.
Been seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes. So the articles that are added. Can you go through those, Tony?
Do you want to
Uh.
complete this vote and then on the next one, we'll go into discussion?
Yeah,
Makes
when we
sense.
talk about the warrant. Okay, we can do that. Okay, any further discussion on this motion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye?
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
All
Okay,
right, so
3E, a vote to approve the budget and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee.
well, we have to
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
another motion in here, which is to
Right.
accept and close. So this is where we'll have our discussion.
Yeah.
So I'll make the motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept and close the September 26th, 2020 annual town meeting warrant as presented and to send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Any discussion on the motion?
Seconded and discussion, so open for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so, what you have in front of you is, if you're looking at the electronic version that I sent around and you go to the review tab on Word and click all markup, it'll show you the red line changes that were made. And I could share my screen if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Okay. So, you know, as folks on the call, I'm sure are aware, you know, we've been discussing a lot about town meeting and what's going to be on the warrant. And, you know, really like, are we going to pursue essential articles only or try to get the entire meeting in? Which, you know, could draw more people to the meeting itself. We believe at this point, you know, I've talked to, you know, MAPC, a number of other communities, the Mass Municipal Association. We've explored the option of a virtual town meeting. Unfortunately, legislation does not allow for open town meetings to be held virtually. We did receive quite a few amount of requests for us to explore that option, and we did, but unfortunately, the form of government that we employ doesn't allow us to do our meeting virtually, so it has to be held in person. At this time, while COVID numbers seem to see a little bit of a spike in the last couple weeks, it's encouraging that they're somewhat leveling. And in Nahat, as was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we haven't had any any new cases. And right now we're at 0. So essentially where we ended up with was let's approve and move the full town meeting warrant to the Finance Committee and allow them to make their final recommendations and submit that to the printer to be put into a book and basically initiate that process and plan to have a full warrant town meeting. And it still allows us to maybe make cuts if we see a sudden spike of cases or run into any type of logistical issues that would prevent us from being able to have a number of people in the same space. We can make that adjustment going forward instead of doing the opposite and limiting ourselves now. And, you know, I've reached out, as I mentioned, I talked to MAPC, I've talked to other communities, and I'm trying to see what other communities did or open town meeting communities, how many people they had, and in that scenario, how they were able to handle an in-person meeting. there isn't a lot to go off of. And when they, things were different, circumstances were different when those meetings took place. So we get some idea, some guidance from them, but it's not just a plug and play template situation. So we do have quotes from different companies for seats, for audio, for voting machines, electronic clickers, and a lot of it's going to be the planning and the execution of a social distance compliant process. So there'll be a lot of communication to the public prior to town meeting about what to expect when you show up, how you're gonna be checked in, how you're gonna be filtered to your chair, required to wear masks, things of that nature. We may need to hire an outside company that will actually be almost like a social distance compliant, police, almost in a way, where they're making sure people are keeping their masks on, they're guiding people to and from their seats so that we don't have, a bunch of people crossing paths, and those seats are going to be placed in a spaced, a compliant way. I had somebody echoing back here. Just want to make sure everyone's on mute. Does any of the members of the board want to speak to the, coronavirus aspect of town meeting before I get into explaining, the articles on the warrant or the changes that were made?
I'm just going to use the word that the superintendent used, and that's being nimble. Things are changing daily, and I know that you're on top of it, Tony. The governor could change its guidance at any time, and we're going to have to respond, and I'm sure we will. Will be interesting as schools begin to open and as colleges begin to open, whether or not we experience another spike, and we're going to have to see what the governor has to say and follow his guidelines. So we'll have to be nimble, and I'm sure we'll adjust.
Yeah, I would just add that, I think the school is a very good parallel. I know, Tony and I have spent a lot of time on the phone trying to hash this out, and beyond that, he spent a lot of time on the logistics of this. And in the end, it seems like this is the safest option for a controlled, to have a controlled outside meeting where every safety system can be in place and enforceable. So in the end, although it was a difficult choice, this seemed like the proper choice.
Gene, any comments?
Just that Tony and I talked about this at length the other day, and I think, like you said, Mark, this could change at any time. So, Jack, be nimble. Jack, be quick.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple quick, I'll just hit some of these, red line changes that you see on my screen here. So article number 1, borrowing and compensating balance. This is an article that's kind of been part of our town meeting for years. But the Municipal Modernization Act actually allows us to do this, gives us the authority to do this borrowing, and we don't really need this article anymore. And we'd never really get into compensating balance. Very, very few towns do. Article number 2, which is transfers. Usually this is an article that occurs, when we're having town meeting in the spring, we're usually utilizing this article to transfer money from one account to another that was voted on by the previous town meeting in the existing fiscal year. Whereas we are meeting in September, we're already in the middle of our fiscal year, and we're at the beginning of it. So the old last year's budget or last fiscal year is closed. We can't change anything in there, so we don't need this article. Same thing with snow and ice, article number 3. Typically, we use snow and ice, this article in a town meeting, to shift money around to pay any extra money that was spent above our appropriation on snow and ice related items. Again, that last year, the last fiscal year is closed now. So we basically, the way it worked is we paid off the balance of snow and ice with free cash when we closed the books. And, we're in the new fiscal year now. And just so you know, on snow and ice, we ended up spending around $50,000 last year, which is very cheap. Typically, I think we, over the last 10 years or so, we've gone as high as spending in the $200,000 range to as low as last year, $50,000 range. And we're typically, the average is somewhere around 120. So last year was a good year for snow and ice and didn't make a big impact on taking from this year's free cash in order to pay it off. The rest of these changes here that I'm scrolling by are just changing the number of the article. Article 11, community preservation. So these are the CPC articles. We got these from the committee. I'm not going to go through each one right now. Of course, we'll have another meeting with the moderator, and we'll have the CPC chairwoman on the meeting to discuss each of these articles. But essentially, these are the ones that were applied for back in the spring. As you can see here in yellow under letter N, this is the eminent domain CPC article. What I need to do is I need to get the parcel ID from the assessor's office and insert it into this language. So when the board makes a motion to accept these and close the warrant, if you could just include a statement of authority for me to add this in once I get it from the town assessor. This article is a little bit different than how it was received, so that it says here that the town, as you can see, it says appropriate through borrowing the sum of $1.5 million to pay a portion of the cost to acquire by gift, negotiated purchase, eminent domain taking, or otherwise fee simple, or any other lesser interest in the land described for conservation purposes, including the payment of all costs incidental related thereto, subject to. So 2 elements of the application of the Board of Selectmen to the CPC was that this $1.5 million borrowing would only occur if, first of all, this requires a 2/3 vote, this article in itself, to pass. Secondly, the first subject to is letter I, the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to so acquire the above described property. So, as well as this appropriation article, there is later an article to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take. So this article, even if it passes by 2/3, only gets used if the later article passes as well.
Hey,
And
Tony,
then- Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is Jeff from KP. Listen, I also had an opportunity to speak with bond counsel, and they have indicated that they would like on the very up top there, it says for conservation purposes, including the payment of all incidental and related costs thereto, the expenditure of which is subject to. So I'd like to amend that so that I think it'll pass bond counsel's review, and I suggest that we send it over to bond counsel as well prior to, certainly if the Board of Selectmen want to approve this wording, they can approve it contingent upon approval by bond council.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. So as I was saying, the application to the Community Preservation Committee included these two conditions or contingencies that the town would have to also approve by town meeting vote and authorization to the Board of Selectmen to take. And number two, which is right there, is a raising of $3 million through grants or gifts. So those two things have to occur in order for this borrowing to occur if approved by town meeting of a 2/3 vote. Is that a good explanation, or do you want to
I think it
provide more?
It makes good sense, Tony. It's that's and what number article is that?
So this is actually Article, I think 11. Yeah, so this is Article 11, letter N.
Okay, I just needed to know that when we make the motion to make those changes.
So that was that's that little change. I just added it in there if you can see it. The expenditure of which is subject to.
Okay.
So moving further, this article number 12 here. So authorize acquisition. So this is after we go through all the CPC articles. Here's your authorization acquisition, your acquisition authority. See if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, and or eminent domain all the portion of the parcel of land located. And then I'll add the same language here describing the property into this article. So this is Article 12.
Okay.
The rest of these are unchanged other than the article number. DPW capital. So originally this article was for $130,000 and it was for a towable sewer jetter and a water sewer utility truck. In the last week, we had service done on our backhoe at the DPW, and it was deemed unsafe for operation. Essentially, the floor and the structure of the cab is rotted out. It's a 2008, so it's 14, 15 years old. Usually you try to get 20 years out of something like this, but it's a liability for the town. We can't allow for our employees to operate the machine because it's deemed unsafe. If it were to tip over, in other words, the cab isn't structurally sound to protect the operator. So it needs to be replaced. This is a key item. Every time we have a water or sewer minimal break, like a small service issue or something like that, we use this piece of equipment. If we don't have it and we have to hire somebody else, we're probably spending around $10,000 per job. So, it certainly pays for itself over time.
What happened to the sewer jet?
It still needs to be replaced, but we're going to try and get another year out of it. Not nearly as important or used as much as the backhoe. So we're going to try and get another year out of it. We replaced the jet with, we replaced the jet on this warrant with the backhoe. So we got a good price. I think it's like $92,000 plus the price of the price of the water utility truck.
Was this under the state contract, Tony?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All of these are unchanged. Coast Guard Design Development and Advisory Committee. this is the language, Dan Scripp, if you want to jump in on any of this, this is the language provided, town council worked with the committee. This is the recommendation of the committee. It was previously, this was a placeholder spot for them. So here, gives their recommendation, and this is the, I don't want to get into explaining what the recommendation is. I don't want to misrepresent what the recommendation is, but the language is here in the article.
The only possible change, Tony, is at the very end there, that overlay district might turn into a deed restriction, but that's still being discussed. And if we have to amend that, we can do it on the floor.
Okay.
But that might be a change, but we'll see.
Okay. And that's it. Those are the latest changes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Josh or Jane?
Just really happy to see the Coast Guard housing article on the warrant. So it's been a long time coming, and really happy to see it made it.
Okay. Jane?
No, I'm good.
So Josh, if there's no further discussion, we can take a vote on this. So just to note that under Article 11N, you want to add, we need the authority to add the property description and be contingent to approval by bond council. You can add that in there somehow.
Yep. And the same thing with Article 12. We need the
Property description, right.
Yeah. All right, so I move the board, this is a revised motion, so.
You want to ask Jeff Blake, do you want to provide a motion? And then they can just say, I so move?
I think it's sufficient to just say that approval of the warrant contingent upon the directions provided here too. With respect to article, is that 11N?
11N and 12.
And 12. I think that's sufficient.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept and close the September 26, 2020 annual town meeting warrant as presented with the exceptions noted during discussion, and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Seconded.
Any further discussion on the motion? Is that okay, Mr. Town Council? Jeff, that sound
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. We now move on to the budget. Gene?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen budget for fiscal year 21 and to forward it to the Finance and Advisory Committee for their ongoing review in the fiscal year 21 budget development process.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Tony?
Yes. So if you take a look at the spreadsheet in your books there, we had made changes back in March, but hold on, someone's off mute. Oh, I think that worked itself out. Hold on, back to the spreadsheet there. So if you look at August 18th for under the general fund, that's where it shows a lot of the changes that we've made recently. So some of these changes are to account for the lack of information about local receipts and state revenues or state aid. I'm still getting some feedback from somebody. Okay, I think I may have fixed it. I'm just going to change this to not allow people to unmute themselves for now. Okay, so many of the changes that we just made that you are voting on right now, one has to do with the lack of information and from the state budget. So back in March, we had presented a budget that actually didn't use all of the revenues that we were anticipating. We were going to be dropping a little bit more than $200,000 to free cash, something that the town hasn't done in many, many years, and was one of the goals of the override, was to reduce our reliance of free cash to balance our budget. So we actually were able to develop a budget that didn't need all of our free cash to make it balance. So the glass half full on this situation is that we're able to basically provide ourselves a $230,000 cushion to make adjustments to our budget because of coronavirus. Glass half empty, we're not dropping that money we're using all of our free cash to balance our budget once again. However, a significant portion of that is going into the reserve fund. So what we're doing here is instead of dropping it to free cash at the beginning of the fiscal year, we're putting it into the reserve fund in case the state budget is passed in the next few months and drastically changes our projected state aid, or if we don't receive as much reimbursement for our COVID expenses, or if other sudden issues come up, unexpected, but due to COVID, the money's in the reserve fund and we can go to the finance committee for those reasons. Other changes are increases to items related to the additional town meeting. So because we typically have our annual town meeting in May, it would have been under the last budget. Now we're having it in September, plus we have our regular annual town meeting in May. 2 town meetings in the same fiscal year. So we've had to, we're increasing the clerk's budget for that reason, the finance committee's budget for that reason, plus legal expenses for that reason. We've also increased the clerk's, not the clerk, but the elections budget, which is related to the clerk's budget, because of the additional elections due to the presidential election this year compared to last year where we didn't have one. So there's some increases there. You'll also see a reduction in some of the salary items because we actually built this budget. If you recall, last year when we passed the override, it included a 2% increase on salaries across the board, which included our police, fire, and DPW unions. However, through negotiations and because of coronavirus, we did not provide a 2% increase in the last fiscal year, and instead are going to be providing it starting this year. So our budget last year included a 2%, and then the budget that we created in March was a 2% on top of that. Now, because of those CBAs, those collective bargaining agreements, we're actually eliminating 2%. So you'll actually see a reduction on paper. However, it is an increase. It's a 2% increase in the salaries compared to 2 years ago. I know that's somewhat confusing. Are there any questions on that? I know there's, I'm throwing out a lot of different fiscal years and contracts and things like that. So is there any questions on that piece? Or does that make sense, how I explained it?
It makes sense to me. I have no questions, Tony. I think I understand what's going on here.
Okay.
Josh or Gene?
I mean,
No, I'm good with it.
essentially, you're going from 2 fiscal years ago compared to the budget we put together back in May, you'd see a 4% increase. But because of the contracts that we just agreed on, that was a 0% for last fiscal year and a 2% for the fiscal year we just started. We have to adjust these numbers. So it's no longer a 4%, it's 2%. So on paper, it looks like a reduction, but it's actually, they're just going to be receiving their first 2% raise because last year they took a 0. If that's a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
We did have to increase some of the overtime budgets because we are including the Federal Labor Standard Act premium overtime pay. We're required to do this and need to make a little bit of an adjustment there. So we're putting a little extra money in it because we won't know until the end of the fiscal year how much that actually impacts our budget. On the fire department, so we are in, we've agreed for a 1-year working chief contract with Chief Palumbo. So he's going to be officially a working chief. So we're moving his salary from the bulk item under the fire department that funds all full-time employees we're taking his salary and moving it into the department head item under the fire department. So you see that's actually not an increase, it's more of a shift. And you'll see also here that military housing. So the Coast Guard Committee actually received a reserve fund transfer in the last fiscal year for costs associated with the study that they are doing in order to present the information needed for the article of the Coast Guard housing. So because the fiscal year ended and that money closed, it's being added into the account for this upcoming fiscal year. And that's pretty much the bulk of it. Everything else you see in the water sewer enterprise and rubber enterprise are those are salary changes based on the contracts, like I explained previously.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a quick
Water
question.
sewer transfer, can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. Let me see what row?
Row 50, transfer to water sewer.
Debt shift. So we had typically, we're not required to pay interest in the or pay principal in the first year when we do a borrowing. So because we were unsure of whether we were going to do a full town meeting or a essential, a pared down version of the town meeting, we basically took the first year payments of the borrowing articles and eliminated them from the budget. So we'll start paying them off in the year 2. This way, it doesn't matter whether they are featured at town meeting or whether they don't get approved at town meeting. We don't have to adjust the budget for that. Previously, the budget included almost as if they were approved and we were paying the debt down, you know, in year 1.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Hey, Tony,
Yes.
the 2%, the way that's accounted for, doesn't that actually create a reduction?
It creates a reduction on paper based on what we had been planning for. But it does not reduce the salaries of the employees. So last town meeting, the town approved a 2% increase to those unions. However, we didn't come to an agreement. So they actually never received the 2% increase that was approved by town meeting. Then we agreed on a 0% deal for last year and a 2-3-3 starting this year.
Right.
So in actuality, the 2% that we agreed on in the contract and starting this fiscal year is a level funding compared to last year's budget. However, prior to that agreement, we had a 2% increase built on top of last year's budget in this budget. So it's a reduction on paper to bring it in line with the agreed upon contract.
Okay.
I know it's confusing, jumping back
Yeah.
like that.
Just a bit. The other question I had too is the reserve fund strong enough to sustain any strong hit from the state change, if there is one?
Yeah, we're basically bringing the reserve fund up to $340,000. That's a significant increase to years in the past. I think typically they carry about 180. So if we don't need it, it'll drop to free cash at the end of the year. Or we can use it to supplement, costs of snow and ice or other things like that, if we don't need it.
Okay.
It's a good way to do it, to provide us that cushion for any unexpected costs due to reduction in revenues. So it's a good way to do it. I would have liked to have gone to town meeting and said, hey, that override you guys approved last year worked, and we're actually not balancing our budget with all of our free cash for the first year in quite some time, and we're putting money into stabilization and OPEB and paying down our debts. That would have been great to show that, but instead the message is, because we did that, we're able to absorb this unknown, I guess, and put the extra money into the reserve fund in case we get hit. And, maybe, hopefully we don't get hit and that money drops to free cash at the end of the year. Yeah, I think that I think 340,000 should sustain any type of, I can't guarantee it, but it should be enough.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well, it's certainly a lot more than I've ever seen in the reserve fund.
Yeah.
So good. So like Tony said, if it's not used, it will fall to free cash, and the town will have another opportunity to vote on how they wish to use it. So, very good. Any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Hickram, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, we have some approvals here from a couple events.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, before you jump on to the next thing, can I just quickly, publicly say how thankful I am for Debbie Waters and all the work that she's doing right now between 112 budgets and, adjusting this budget for town meeting and closing out the last fiscal year and being short-staffed. She deserves a lot of credit for the amount of work that she's doing. And I just want to publicly say how thankful I am to her. And we are all very, very lucky to have her.
Well, I would agree, Tony. She's saved me for over 17 years. Yeah.
Agreed.
Her institutional knowledge is pretty incredible, and she's usually pretty accurate with her numbers too. So I would agree. Okay, we have some event requests to look at.
The first one is, I'll just make the motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for a taping of the Florence Johnson Herbarium at Town Hall on August 21st, 2020. That's tomorrow at 6:30 p.m.
I have a second.
Seconded.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion?
I don't know if Sharon wants to
Yeah.
driving this or
Sharon?
Trying to, there you go.
You can hear me okay?
yes.
Thank you. This is not a public event. This is a videotaping. The Garden Club asked us if the library would do a presentation on the Florence Johnson Herbarium, which is that unique collection of pressed plants that were created circa 1897. And they are all digitized now. They are waiting for Boston Public Library to upload them to Digital Commonwealth for us. And so this is just an opportunity to talk about it. I believe the videotape will play on local cable, and we'll also put it onto our YouTube channel and Facebook page. So we'll have some fun.
Sounds good.
So I know, Sharon, those displays you had picked up in the attic that were up there for a number of years. Are they in pretty good shape?
Varies by specimen, actually, but it was remarkable how great a shape they're in. Many thanks to Robert Wilson, who did the actual photography of all the items. And then we spent a number of hours describing them all. Yeah, really happy they are. And digitization is a way to preserve the images of each one before they deteriorate further. This is a 2-year grant supporting this, and in the second year we're going to be purchasing some boxes and archival boxes and other things to further preserve them, to house them.
Oh, great, sounds exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Thanks, Sharon. We have a for a dance performance at Bailey's Hill. Gene?
Hold on one second. Yeah, hold on 1 minute.
Okay, yeah.
Before you get to this one, there is a contingency included in it regarding COVID, just so you know. I think it's in the motion.
Yeah.
This went through John Coulon reviewed this. It seems to be the plan is pretty in depth and pretty good. But you know, again, right now it seems like something we could do, but we'll see how things evolve with COVID.
Yeah, looking at the supporting information for both this request and the filming that Sharon just talked about, it's very thorough. So
Yeah, thank you, John, for getting on this. Okay.
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for a dance performance at Bailey's Hill on September 19, 2020, and a rain date of September 20, 2020, contingent of the COVID-19 guidelines.
seconded.
It's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, that's new business. We're going on to ongoing business. Under 4A, preserving East Point, continuing discussions. Let me just say that I know that over the past week or so, that's Tony has been doing a lot of work, meeting and having discussions with our town council, our attorneys that are working on the eminent domain portion of this. I think we finished the second appraisal, and that should be coming out pretty soon. The cost benefit analysis is going along. I know that the engineers in surveying is beginning up at East Point that we will need to for a description of the property. And we're also talking with bond counsel about stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And I'm not quite sure we're able to discuss them in context at this particular moment, but what I suggested to Tony earlier last week was that within a week or two, and I know that we've received a couple letters or emails asking to address some questions that some citizens may have regarding this issue. So I've asked the town administrator to set up a meeting in a week or 2 weeks when we've got this information collected, a public Zoom meeting where we can have our town council, eminent domain attorneys, and other professionals who've been working on this to join that meeting and open up for questions and answers to the public so that we can begin to address a lot of their questions. So I don't know if there's anything that I could add to that, Tony or Josh or Gene?
Well, it sounds like that question and answer session with the experts in their field would be very valuable for concerned citizens.
And I'll just add, you know, last year when we were proposing the override, we held a number of pre-town meeting sessions regarding articles in the on the warrant, and it proved to be extremely beneficial. Many people complimented it, you know, being briefed on all the different issues ahead of time, and also in a lot of the guidance that I've gotten from other communities and from MAPC about town meeting is doing, you know, briefings ahead of time about what to expect when you get there and to describe the different articles that'll be heard. So along with having a, you know, a meeting specifically on that one topic, we'll likely host a number of meetings to talk about other items and or to brief people, you know, ahead of town meeting on the issues so they are as prepared as possible to make a vote at town meeting and hopefully get through stuff quicker, you know. So once we get through tonight, we'll get on the calendar a number of Zoom meetings like this to do, including, one specifically for the Northeastern issue. And there's a question I see in the chat too about a public meeting regarding Coast Guard housing. That I know that the committee has talked about doing a pre-town meeting, public meeting, like on Zoom regarding that article too. So that'll be coming as well.
Any other discussions on East Point? I don't know, Tony, do we usually open it up to the public at this point, or just wait for citizens forum?
It's up to you.
We can probably get through this other stuff, and then we can circle back on the citizens. Okay. Another on 11B, we have an amendment to the gift agreement between the Preservation Trust and the town. Josh? Someone's muted. Josh?
I muted myself. So I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize acceptance of any additional funds gifted by the Nahat Preservation Trust to replenish the gift agreement pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Paragraph 53A, account as needed to assist the town with evaluating the development of the property located at East Point.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Tony, could you perhaps explain this, what we're doing here?
Essentially, so at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, there was a vote to publish and mail the second statement of the Board of Selectmen regarding the Northeastern eminent domain issue, and that it would be paid for by private donation. So there's an existing gift agreement between the Nahat Preservation Trust and the town of Nahat for costs associated with appraisal and legal work and engineering work. But it needs to be, a lot of that money's been spent already, so it needs to be replenished. And instead of having the Board of Selectmen vote every time we get another donation to accept, this kind of is generally allowing the Board of Selectmen to accept them as they come in a rolling basis.
Makes sense. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Heffernan, aye.
Gene?
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, town administrators report.
Okay, so Johnson Elementary School COVID reopening update we covered at the beginning of the meeting with the superintendent. And secondly, trash bills. We did get a couple calls, or we've gotten a couple communication from residents wondering where the trash bill is. We are likely going to have something in front of you, the Board of Selectmen, at your next meeting regarding trash rates. And we're just still in the process of really ironing out those details. So for the residents, we will be we hope to send out trash bills in the next month. And the reason for delay is contract negotiations with Waste Management and that increase in cost of the hauling service and how we're going to distribute that has been, is just delayed the process of putting out the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a couple other things too that aren't on this agenda. One is our MWRA loan-funded water infrastructure repairs. They're to start next week. So Walton Road and Furbish Road, which are going to be seeing a replacement of a 1-inch water main to an 8-inch water main, plus additional fire hydrants. The contractor should be mobilizing in the next week and will probably be there for about 3 weeks. Then after the Walton Road and Furbish Road work is completed, the contractor will be moving to Little Nahat at Howe Road and Mills Terrace. And that's expected the week of September 7th. And that work is also expected to be about 3 weeks. So some much needed water work occurring over the next month. Also, as many people may have already noticed, Willow Road, which has been a disaster to drive down because of all the work that National Grid is doing on the gas main there. Zach, our DPW superintendent, really put the pressure on them to repave from center line to curb where they dug and replaced the old main with the new main. And that work was done this past week, so happy to see that get done. Also today I met on site at Short Beach with Applied Coastal regarding our municipal vulnerability preparedness project. They are basically, we hired them to design a project that would feature increasing the resiliency of the Short Beach dune by filling in the access points and having compliant access that would go up and over the dune instead of cutting through the dune to help with preventing storm surge from flooding the street. They're doing great work. The next step in that process is to have a public meeting and get some public comment on the design. And MAPC actually just announced a no match required $150,000 up to $150,000 grant program. So we're going to apply to that for the construction of this job. So that's coming soon. People may have seen some information posted on signage at the access points by the Coast Guard station. We're probably going to put some updated signage there with some new graphics of the design. And like I said, we'll have a virtual public process as well. Parrot and Fallon.
Tony, just sort of related to that, I know that several meetings ago we talked about the flooding on Castle Road and Fox Hill Road, and I know that I've met with you and DPW and others at the area. I've looked at a lot of the plans and elevations down there. I know that you and Zach are now consulting with an engineer to look at some short-term fixes down there, as well as some perhaps long-term. But we did promise we promised the neighbors in that area that we have a meeting to update them. So perhaps we could, I don't know if you want to do it with that meeting, but we should probably try to, once you get the information from the engineers, we should meet with the neighbors to go over what we're planning for this fall.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, I want some engineering expertise to take a look at our concept that we came up with there to help out before really bringing it to the public, because I don't want to bring an idea that isn't doable. But essentially, yeah, we took a look at the data that we have now, and we're trying to create or improve emergency access for flood recovery that wouldn't interfere with the traffic patterns of the town. Whereas right now we basically, when we're pumping out of that area, we have to shut down either Castle or Nahat to run the hose across the street, and we're sometimes limited on access due to the flooding. So we're working on it, and we've consulted with Kristen Kent, the chairwoman of the Concom, and I definitely want to bring that. I know they're eager to get some information. I want to get that to them as soon as possible, and obviously hope to maybe complete the work even before hurricane season, which is obviously right around the corner.
Yeah. All right, great. So I just want to the people in that area that we haven't forgot. We're going to try to get something in place before fall.
Also, Little Nahat, Parrot, and Fallon Road experienced damage on the seawall at the end of the road there in the 2018 storms, and we had to, in an emergency scenario, the town put some boulders out onto the beach there to help protect the road from falling into the ocean. And we are going to be going back out there in the coming weeks. I think right after Labor Day, we're going to be out there fixing those seawalls and fixing the temporary solution that we put out there. And next week, we're having a meeting with the neighbors, a Zoom meeting with the neighbors on Thursday, I believe, to explain to them the timeline and the plans and the details of that project too. A lot of that is funded by FEMA. And then lastly, streetlights. We've now awarded the installation contract. Caviello, I believe, is the name of the company. We did a bid process for that, and that work should be occurring over the next month. So a lot of things happening in the town over the next month.
Hey, if I could, going back to Fox Hill Road and Castle Road, I read that email that Christine Licio sent out, and Mark, I think you got more involved in it, or deeply involved in it. She's a great resource for all this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we're going to, drag her into some of the thoughts she has on it. I know she's not an engineer, but she lives it and she understands it, and it might be well worth our while to bring her in often.
Definitely. She's also very involved in the MVP committee. And, it's been a great resource there too. So yeah, like I said, Gene, I just want to make sure, I want to get an engineering perspective on our idea here, on our plan, because I don't want to bring something that isn't feasible or, isn't permittable or anything like that to the neighborhood. I want to make sure we have those, boxes checked off before we talk about, what the plan is. But
yeah, no, I'm not asking that. I'm just saying we need to be sure we consider her input, the neighbor's input. But I think she's been living this thing and she understands it better than most.
definitely.
All right. Is that it, Tony?
That's it.
Okay, we have citizen forum.
So what I'll do is I can
just chime in for 1 sec. So typically for citizens forum, people announce their name and address. It's kind of fallen by the wayside on Zoom, but at least people should be identified by name.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. Absolutely.
So what I'll take a look at the chat and we'll see if So anything, I'll call out stuff in the chat first, and then we'll go live to people on the phone, or I'll ask them to unmute. So I think we covered this busing. The first one was B. Rogers. Are you still on the phone, B? I don't know. Her question was, do we know where it will be held? I think she was referring to town meeting. And the answer to that question is the Flash Road Park, the Babe Ruth Field behind the fire station. And as we approach town meeting, we will provide, graphics of that and what to expect, where to park, where to check in, that sort of, all those details we'll obviously push out prior to the meeting. Ken Carangelo, are you still on the? Make sure people can unmute themselves. Okay, participants can unmute themselves now. So Ken Carangelo, you go.
There we go. Yeah, I was trying to unmute.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, thanks. So I just put in the chat, just for the sake of completeness, there's sort of four questions on topics that have been discussed here. I just struck into them in order here. The first, sorry, a second. There's too many screens going on here. The first one is just regarding the eminent domain funding. As the current warrant articles are written, there doesn't appear to be a specific contingency if 3 million isn't enough. And I know at the last meeting, Josh had mentioned a financial backstop of grants and gifts, et cetera, to be determined. Is there, as the article is written, if there is a gap, is it just grants and gifts TBD, TBD? Or does the amendment to the NPT gift agreement mean that they are committing to making up any difference?
Well, why don't we take that, Tony? As I said, the whole ED discussion with our professionals is evolving as we speak. You speak of a backstop, and that's the difference between what the pro tanto or what the town pays Northeastern and what Northeastern thinks it's worth, and confirmed by a jury. We are working on contingency plans. I don't think we're at a point right now to discuss them in details, but I feel pretty comfortable that within the next couple of weeks we'll have a better answer for you in regards to that.
Okay, so is the intent that I guess, whether it's in the FinCom book or however it's communicated, that people will have time to understand that contingency and absorb it prior to town meeting?
Yes. Josh or Gene, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's been said all along. I don't think there's any real question to what's being asked. We need some patience to clearly understand where we're going with this.
To quote a famous movie, just show me the money. That's all I'm asking. Okay, that's fine. Appreciate the response. Regarding eminent domain funding, if the current plan to do this as a borrowing through the Community Preservation Act is approved, does that borrowing itself obligate the town to remain in the CPA program for the 30-year duration of the loan, regardless of how the state match may change in the future? And does the act of borrowing in that way obligate the town to 3% indefinitely? Does it prevent the town from changing the percentage at any time in the future?
I could probably answer that, Tony, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. With the borrowing, and Josh, I know you've done a lot of numbers on this, with the borrowing of 1.5 million over the life of the bond, it would still allow approximately 80% of the CPA funds to be used for other projects. We are currently at a 3% surcharge, and we would be committed. The town would be committed to for the life of the borrowing. We're obligated to pay that over the terms of the bond. Even if the town chose to discontinue the Community Preservation Act, or to get rid of the Community Preservation Act, we'd still be obligated to pay that bond off.
Okay, so just to, and that makes sense. Just to clarify, though, the commitment that this 30-year borrowing is making for people's children and grandchildren and whoever else is just for the amount of the bond. It's not locking in the 3%, the full 3% indefinitely.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, so I think the town, theoretically, the town could vote to either change that percentage or vote to no longer be a CPC community.
Mm-hmm.
But we would still have the obligation to pay off that bond.
Mm-hmm.
So, we could do so by authorizing a borrowing under a separate borrowing to pay off that bond, and then now we're just, it's being added into our general fund, our debt pay down. Or you could essentially leave the CPC surcharge in place until that bond is paid off. But you wouldn't, I don't think you'd be able to use it once you vote to no longer be a CPC community. I don't know if you would still be able to use that money for other purposes.
I guess what I'm saying is however the math works, say the required CPC amount is 0.5% to pay the bond, right? But not the 3%. We could still do that and not be obligated to the full 3%. I think that's what Mark had.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That was a good question.
Thank you. Again, it's all about the children and grandchildren,
That's how we feel in protecting East Point.
Understood. Just want to make sure we know what we're getting into. I had two others, so if it's okay, I'll just plow through those two.
I know you had one. I saw something about the Coast Guard housing, Ken.
Yeah, before that one, just going back to the funding for East Point, regarding the NPT gift agreement amendment, right? So if the board is no longer going to be approving gifts individually, what's the mechanism to let the public know about the amounts, purposes, and the timing of these gifts?
I guess there's the vote. What the vote does is allow the board to accept the gifts on a rolling basis without having to do it at a, post a board of selectmen meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you're kind of eliminating that mechanism, but there's nothing that prevents the board to provide an update publicly at every board of selectmen meeting about any type of gifts that have been received.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, it would just be a disclosure, not necessarily an acceptance.
Dan, do you think I have that right?
No, I think you have it right. But Ken, to your point, you can always do is file a public records request on a regular basis if that's something you want to do to pull that information from town hall.
So should I do that weekly, daily, every month?
That's up to you. That's up. If you feel
Ken, I'll call you. I'll let you.
No. Is there something the Board of Selectmen could just commit to disclosing at whatever time, whatever BOS meeting is after whatever gift takes place? To just
no problem. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. And then, Mark, as you said, regarding the Coast Guard housing, when this was last presented back in 2017, the FinCom book included a number of questions that at the time were not answered, and I think that's part of the reason that the motion didn't carry at that point. And the questions were less about how the property was to be disposed of, sell it at however many lots, but also included things like how will they be sold? Who will sell them? Who will be chosen to buy them? The pricing, are they all sold at once? It's like all those sorts of things. And I think it's 3+ pages of questions. Some of them no longer apply, given I think that what the scenarios are to be presented. But will those sorts of questions be addressed for town meeting?
Well, they're going to have to be addressed to me. I know that, you know, I didn't have any comment earlier in this meeting when the subject came up when we were discussing the warrant. The Coast Guard Advisory Committee, I know, have been working on this for the past 2 years, well before I was a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I know that they put a lot of work into it. I do have my own opinions on what is the best use of that property, and I thought the best way for me to discuss them is at town meeting. And I know that the FinCom, a couple of years ago, when they responded, I thought did an excellent job in raising those questions. Like you said, some of them were answered, may have been answered, some of them may have not, but I have a lot of questions myself. And I'm going to reserve my questions to Tony. You said there's going to be a public Zoom meeting. I plan on attending that and express my feelings towards it in town meeting.
And the chairman, Peter Barba, kind of did a briefing of that presentation to FinCom last week. The presentation was extremely detailed and probably answered a lot of the questions you have, Ken. He does a very good job of explaining, you know, the process that they went through and how they got to their decision, and answers a lot of those questions. I think when it comes to who will be I can answer quickly. I can tell you right now that because of Chapter 30B procurement law, they have to be put up to bid. So there is no selection other than through an RFP process. Am I right, Dan?
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yeah, we're disposing of town property, so there's a whole set of checklists we have to go through. So it'll be very public, very open.
Okay. I know last time I had checked in with that committee, they had really focused on really narrowing it down to how to dispose of the property. In other words, sell it as individuals, do a development, et cetera. Those alternatives, and weren't at that time focusing on the details. The presentation you just described to the FinCom, is that available somewhere?
It might be. It might be available. Let me look into that. But
okay. I know their limits are a
us
little bit behind, so I don't, unless they put it on recently. Yeah, that would be helpful.
It might have. You know, the video might be recorded. It was on Zoom, so it may have recorded. I have to check with the committee. But like I said, you know, a lot of the questions you asked about how it will be disposed of and how they got to where they ended up, all that's in there. It's a good presentation. I think it answers a lot of those questions. I encourage anybody with those questions to keep an eye out for the regularly posted meetings and to attend the, you know, we'll put it on Facebook. We'll put it out there. It's a big one for the town. We'll probably do a robocall of some sort to encourage people to participate. I mean, for me, you know, I want people to participate in that meeting so they have a better idea of how they're going to vote at town meeting, so we can get through that, you know, get through all these warrant articles quicker. So I'm going to encourage a lot of people to participate in that pre-meeting.
Again, if the materials could be available either as they exist or before that meeting, that would be helpful. And obviously, that's all right, great. Thank you very much.
Next is Heather. Heather, are you still on the line?
I am still on the line.
All right. So you were the next one with the question that looks like it has to do with Coast Guard.
I mean, you've been talking about the Coast Guard housing, and I've been listening. I think these questions should have been answered before the article got put up. I've been watching this whole process very closely for the past 8 years, And honestly, what I see in this warrant is exactly what 60, 70, 80 people showed up to say they didn't want a couple years ago. This is an opportunity for the town to do something that'll be like lasting and meaningful for us. And just putting 12 new houses up at market price seems like a waste for our town. We have an elderly population. 8 years ago, we wanted to have elderly housing there, and these people still are holding on to their houses, and we have no answers for that question. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity with this pack of land to do something that's worthwhile for our town and for our residents who have lived here a lifetime.
Well, Heather, when I ran for the board, one of my priorities was elderly housing and affordable housing, and it still is, and it will be when I discuss my opinions about the Coast Guard housing.
I just feel like this is one of the last spaces of land we can do something as a community that makes a difference here. I mean, our town is changing fast. Every bit of land that can be built on is being built on, bigger and bigger and bigger. And we need to help our residents, like my parents, who have lived here a lifetime, who need to downsize. And I feel like I've been vocal about this. I've gone to meetings. I've gone to every meeting for 8 years, begging for some sort of like outside of the box solution for this piece of land. And we're exactly where we were a couple years ago, saying just sell it at market price. It just doesn't seem right to me.
Well, that's one of the reasons we have town meeting, and we'll discuss it.
Okay. I don't think the article should even be on there yet without any of these answers being answered by the committee to the public. We were promised that, and I know that COVID has changed everything, but we were promised a meeting before this became an article.
Well, they've been meeting regularly, haven't they, Tony?
Yeah, they definitely have. And I mean, I wouldn't, I completely understand where Heather's concerns lie and the comments that you have there. I would characterize it a little bit different. I think that the committee's been working extremely hard and has been.
But I also think that when you bring up changing what they want to do as into something different, like they don't want to listen to you. They're not like, yeah, let's do that.
I've been to a number of their meetings. I've listened to the presentation, a dozen times, and I know that they're trying to get. They've been pushing to get public input for a while, and this meeting that they're going to do prior to town meeting will hopefully inform folks as to which way they want to vote on the article presented. So
okay,
we'll push it out there publicly to get as much attention on it as possible.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add that what she's saying is so true. Affordable and elderly housing should really play an important role in the decision-making process on this. I don't say that it's the decision to be made, but it should really be looked at seriously.
I agree. Okay, anything else, Tony?
Yes, Alice. Is it Alice Court?
No, it's not Alice Court.
Okay, there's a comment here from Kay Alice. All right, well, I'll read it off. I think there are a lot of important topics being presented at an outdoor meeting that will be very difficult for some people, like our elderly, to get to. walking the fields, sitting in weather. I'm healthy and have doubts that I will go depending on Corona. Is this really the best time to have so many important warrants at this meeting? I'm shocked the housing got put on there. Jen McCarthy?
Hi. My question isn't about anything discussed tonight. I just want to know if any of you know, and if not, if you could point me in the right direction. Can a person convert a car garage into an apartment?
Tony, I can address that.
Yeah.
Jen and I have discussed this before, and yes, it's possible. It's a high bar to overcome, and it's something that's monitored by our health agent, Don Coulon. It can be done, but there's a lot to be done to make it happen. The answer is yes, Jennifer, it can be done, but there's a lot of steps to be had before it can be legal. Plumbing, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, because I've always been told that it's not legal in Nahant.
No, Jen, you and I discussed this already, and it is legal.
Okay.
You should take it up with John Coulon. He can give you the specifics as to what part of the sanitary code needs to be followed and whatnot.
Okay, thank you.
He'll be ready for your question because he and I discussed this about 2 months ago, so he won't be surprised.
All right, I'll reach out to him.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
You bet.
Next was Ken, but I think we covered all of Ken's questions.
Yes.
Kay Alice, again, I'm going to try to unmute you. There you are.
Hi.
Hi, can you announce your name and address?
Carrie Alice Collins, Breeze Hill Terrace. I'm just on the same page as some of the people with the housing. We were promised a meeting. The committee is doing hard work, yes, but they really are somewhat unapproachable when you have questions or concerns or ideas. And honestly, yeah, like you can't find minutes anywhere. I mean, Ken just wrote it. I think the last minutes that they posted was in January, and it feels rushed, and that's what I said in my comments. That's really it.
Okay. I appreciate it. I would say, definitely try to attend the public meeting and voice those opinions.
I mean, honestly, like the same opinions are voiced all the time. Either you're for some kind of like real, like out of the box thinking, which is going to be transforming this town into something beautiful and meaningful, or you put 12 houses up. And I don't know, I'm just for something different. It just feels like this town, it really is just about the money and how big can you build. I mean, you look at Hodges on that corner and I can't believe it. I mean, I just want to see the elderly have someplace to go. It's sad, but that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carrie.
Sure.
Next was Michelle Capano.
Thank you. So I think you heard some really valuable feedback tonight, not just about the project, but about the committee, and it's not always indicative of other committees. I've attended their meetings. They've been very receptive when I've asked questions, but the one thing I will point out is, and Ken pointed it out too, is the town website, which is pretty much the primary vehicle to get updates and information on all the boards and committees, is not updated. And we need better commitment from the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to make sure boards or committees within a reasonable period of time after their meeting, whether it be 2 weeks, 30 days, that information is posted so people can access it. Going into town meeting with this article, you're likely going to get a lot of questions, but even though they're planning for this public hearing, it's still not enough. And people are telling you that, and nothing really is being done to address it. I would prefer, my request is some type of commitment that you can make sure the boards or committees are doing it. I've heard before at these Board of Selectmen's meetings that you were going to put some policy or procedures in place for boards and committees around agendas, meeting minutes, taking them, attendance, and getting that information back to the town clerk and the webmaster so it can be published. It has not happened. Okay, the only thing that is happening is the Board of Selectmen's meeting because it is the most important meeting. But all these other committees, and they are meeting, Concom, Coast Guard Housing, FinCom, they're all lacking their updates. And people are interested, and you want people to come with questions, but you're getting this feedback now, and it's really important to address.
Thank you, Michelle. You know, I know it's important to try to turn this information around as quickly as possible. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm not making excuses for any committee or board. They are volunteers. I know. I know that joining committees, no one wants to be the secretary of the committee that has to take the notes, but they have to be taken. They have to be taken in a timely manner. They have to be filed with the clerk, and they have to be put on the websites as soon as possible. So I agree with that 100%. Tony, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Michelle. I understand obviously the importance of meeting the open meeting law and doing more to be as transparent as possible. I think we've taken, you know, some steps in the right direction. It's, you know, I don't want to make excuses either. To be honest, it's just there, you know, it's hard to make a lot of progress in a short amount of time when there's so much going on. And that's just the honest truth of it. You know, one thing that I'll say, you know, is somewhat of a silver lining of the coronavirus is that it pushed us to this electronic format, which I think is almost a little bit, opens the door even a little bit more for people that maybe can't attend, you know, don't want to drive up to the town hall and sit in a conference room for a couple hours. It's a little bit easier to participate. And, you know, all committee meetings are posted on the community calendar now, which, you know, 6 months ago, you had to drive up to the town hall to look at the board to know if a meeting was happening or not. So, you know, that's a big step in the right direction. And yeah, we were hoping to do a group open meeting law training, but from KP Law. You know, and like I said, you know, it's just hard to get things done under the current environment right now. But you know,
Tony, maybe we could start. And for all I know, maybe you've already done this by putting together some guidelines for committees. So when they, you know, that are put out by the town administrator, approved by the Board of Selectmen, but a set of guidelines of what to expect in terms of putting your agenda together, posting that, taking minutes, releasing those minutes to the clerk, and getting them on the website, just so that they have an idea. You can't be sitting on getting your minutes for 2 or 3 months and then, you know, getting them in. But there should be a timeline, and committees should have a set of guidelines to follow and be expected to do.
If I may, the timeline. The timeline should be from. It's okay. The timeline should be from one meeting to the next. When you finish a meeting, the minutes are completed and reviewed at the next meeting. That makes it a lot easier and simpler to follow it. Because what happens is if you don't, then it gets delayed even more, and the next thing you know, you've got 2 or 3 months that have gone by.
Just to be clear on what the law says, and again, we should strive to be more transparent than the law requires. But just to be clear on what the law requires, as far as timing, is 30 days or by, I think, the third meeting next. So, like, the minutes for tonight need to be typed up and approved by the Board of Selectmen within 30 days or by our third meeting after this, whichever is longer. That's what the law says. So, obviously we want to strive to be better than that. When it came to the Board of I'll just say for the Board of Selectmen meetings, especially with coronavirus, we were meeting, instead of meeting once a month, we're meeting 3 or 4 times a month. And with each meeting comes, posting the agenda, preparing the motions and the votes, the background information, and minutes. And we only have one administrative assistant, and we have a lot of things going on. So we are, it's not a lack of commitment. It's not an issue about being transparent. It's about, and I'm not trying to make an excuse. It's just I want to be practical about, as far as on the Board of Selectmen side, our ability to do better than the open meeting law requirements. Certainly, we need to meet the open meeting law requirements. And as for other committees, I think Mark hit the nail on the head there. Is you got a lot of volunteers there that, no one likes to be the secretary, like you said, but it is a requirement of the law. So, it's a priority. It's just we have, there's a lot going on. So we'll keep pushing on it. We have taken some steps in the right direction so far, I would say.
Yeah,
So I'd like to make one suggestion, if I may. And certainly, I hear what you're saying. There is obviously administrative burdens with challenges like we have, right, with the current situation. But I bet you would be surprised if you put out a request for volunteers to help you organize certain tasks, that you would get that support that you need on a volunteer basis. And I would think about what those tasks and activities are that are administrative that you need help with. There are people that are they're home, may not need the additional income, they're looking for something to do, and they want to volunteer in town. And I would consider that an opportunity to take advantage of.
Great. Thanks, Michelle.
I guess I just want to add simply that, the evidence suggests that there is a gap here, right? The last Coast Guard housing minutes are from January 31st. Today we were approving minutes from January. I think, this board should make a commitment to do better, and I think we just have to do what we can, the guidelines Mark mentioned, to get all the other committees to do a better job as well. I think we should make that commitment.
I agree.
I just want, I hear you, Josh, and I hear that, a commitment is a tough thing to say on it, because there is, this meeting is already 2.5 hours long. So for Bobby Joe, who is in charge of putting the minutes together, she's taken 2.5 hours out of tomorrow to watch this meeting during the work hours and create minutes. So, that's 2.5 hours away from other regular work. And there's a lot on our plates at the moment. So again,
to Michelle's point, right there, it doesn't have to be Bobby Joe, right? Honestly, it's the responsibility of the 3 boards. And not to brag, but when I was on the Town Administrator Search Committee 2 times ago, right, we did the minutes for the meeting at the end of the meeting. That was literally the last thing we did before closing the meeting. So this stuff is a lot more complex than that, but I mean, yes, it's hard, but it's the law. So however it gets done, it needs to get done.
Well, let me point something out. The law, Tony was right in that there's a 30-day, it's almost a recommendation. What the law says, that the minutes have to be done in a timely manner. It's generally considered to be 30 days or the third public meeting. But the fact when you're dealing with coronavirus, you're dealing with something like Northeastern, there's a lot of pressure on Town Hall to get this stuff out by what is essentially a lot of folks that are volunteering their time to do the right thing. So in this particular circumstance where we're fighting a pandemic, that 30 days isn't going to be really feasible in a lot of circumstances. In a timely manner, we defined as something else. True, the goal is to get the information out there, but it's not as easy to get out there as it might seem to be.
Yeah,
Well, I think
it is the law. There is a commitment to being transparent and do better than the law. It's there. I just want to be realistic about resources and ability to prioritize. So when you have 30 days, or in a timely manner by the law, and you got a number of things on the priority list, you got to juggle things sometimes. So we try to do our best we can. I just want to be clear about that.
Okay. I think we heard from people some of their concerns, and I think we'll all agree that we're going to try to do better at this as we move forward. And given the circumstances, I'm sure that will happen. So I hear you anyway. Any other things, Tony?
Yeah, just scrolling through the chat here. Next was Kerry. Not a lot of time left. When should be answered soon. I think Kerry probably addressed that when she spoke. After that was Ken. Looks like the last Coast Guard housing minutes posted are from January 31st. It'd be great to attend every town committee meeting, but it's not feasible for most people, so we rely on minutes. Then Michelle, can the Coast Guard housing committee meetings be posted on town website for residents to review? And I have a comment. Did you have more to say on that, Michelle?
No, you had already gone through that when you acknowledged me for the comment. We're good, and then thank you again.
Okay, yeah. We might be able to, like I said, I'll check if that meeting with the FinCom was recorded, and if it was, we may be able to throw it on their we should be able to throw it on their website, on their page on the website. Okay, Alice, it's part of the job, so no excuses. Jen McCarthy, didn't the BOS used to have the minutes taken during the meeting by Nancy Locke? I agree with Ken. We typed the minutes throughout the meetings, I think. And Alice, this has been going on before Corona. So that's all that's in the chat. If anybody has anything else to say, you have the ability to unmute yourself and just announce your name and address.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
It's Diane.
Hi.
I just want to stick up for the Coast Guard committee. I did receive minutes of the meetings, so we do have them in the office. We just got them in. I don't know I know they're not posted to the website yet, but they have been working very hard, and the documents that I received from one of their meetings was about 20 pages. So so that the Coast Guard committee doesn't feel like they haven't been doing their job. They have. I have received everything, I believe, and I was trying to pull it up, but I can't get into my work email. I believe that we have their meetings up until June or July, whenever their last meeting is. So I do have those meetings. So they are, and two of them are quite lengthy. So again, like 15, 20 pages. So they are doing a lot of work to put that together.
Thank you, Diane.
Just want to stick up for the Coast Guard committee.
All right. Anything else, Tony?
I don't see anything else in the chat unless anybody that's on the call here wants to unmute themselves and participate.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then let's see. An executive session is necessary to discuss the lease and valuation of real property at Kelly Green's Golf Course, 1 Willow Road, Nahat. We will not reconvene in open session. Gene?
Seconded.
No, you got a motion to make on that, Gene.
Not seeing it here. I
I'll
move
take
that the board.
Go ahead, Gene.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to go into executive session in accordance with GL 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss the lease and valuation of real property. Kelly Green's Golf Club, 1 Willow Road, Nahat, Mass. We will not reconvene in open session.
All right,
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, do I have a vote to adjourn? Oh, no.
No, not yet. We're just going to executive session.
Good enough, yeah.
We gotta close this meeting and start a new one, right?
We have to close this
Sorry, I had to
meeting.
grab
No, we
my
voted to go
battery.
into executive session. We'll shut the entire meeting down after executive session.
Okay.
We're just shutting down the public version of it. That's all.
Okay, okay. All right,
Okay.
so regular session has ended, and we'll see you in a week or so. Thank you all for participating.
All right, so just stay on, and what I'll do is I'll kick everyone else out of the thing. Bye, John. Thank you, John Coulon.
Thanks, John. That was a little long, huh?
That was a lot.
We're still open, so. Open mic here.
Yeah, hold on. I think Dan.
I'll be right there.
How's your vacation? How's your vacation coming?
I wished I was back in the Adirondacks.